boogeyman is real, and you found him.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
What's blood for, if not for shedding?
I'm your number one fan.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
7 days.
I am Dracula.
We have such sights to show you. Boy!
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
I am the eater of worlds and of children.
What's in the fucking box?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
One by one, we will take you.
Never get out of bed again!
You gotta be fucking kidding.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
Welcome, horror fans. It is Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. That means it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast. The only podcast that's willing to do whatever it takes to make you love us. And if you, dear horror fanatic, are listening to us at the top of the week, remember, we do this live right here on Wednesday. We're live right here on YouTube every single Wednesday. So you're always welcome to join us. We hope we see you in the live chat. This week, we are covering select horror films released October 1st through October 7th. Thank you all so much for joining us. I am JL, and with me tonight is Eugene.
What's up, everybody?
The director extraordinaire. Was that the first time you've seen the new trailer?
That is.
What'd you think?
Oh, it's awesome. I was like, ooh, Hellraiser, Shining, The Thing. I kept getting more excited on like every single quote.
Awesome. I was putting it together and just kind of like, when I was trying, I was like, we need a new trailer for season 5, going into season 5. And I was kind of like, what can we do? I want to do something different, something like completely different. And I was like, well, we got this amazing artwork that Josh Olsen put together for us. So I wanted to utilize it in a new way. And then, the lines from movies came in and it just kind of like coalesced. So I was really, really happy to have that turned out. So I'm glad that you dig it.
It worked awesome. I'm still here, by the way. I don't know. My camera's been acting up a little bit, but I am still here. I'm going to try to fix this in a second. But
yes.
Yeah, I definitely really enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. Yes, Eugene is just temporarily a virtual nipple, so hopefully he will be back shortly. But I see a whole bunch of people in the live chat tonight. Let me go in first. Let's pull up that amazing Patreon banner. Those are all of the amazing individuals that help. Wait, is that it? No, that's not it. That's the Patreon banner. That was a different banner. Those are all the amazing individuals who help to make the show possible. So thank you all so much for your support. We really, really do appreciate it. And of course, a huge giant thank you to all the individuals who are members of the Army of the Dead, because you can get channel memberships here on Week in Horror now, here on YouTube. And I hope you enjoy all of the emojis that I made for you and the channel badge that you have access to. So let fly those emojis out there. So, because those took time and I'm very, very proud of them. So, and as a matter of fact, my shirt is kind of the same. But anyway, I hope you all enjoy those. So thank you all so very much for that support. If you want to support the show, it is literally like $1 a month. It's like 99 cents a month. And you can help us to make this show possible. So we do appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. Let's see. Who do we have in the live chat tonight? Well, first and foremost, I have to say this because I saw it while we were getting ready to go live. A huge, giant thank you to Week in Horror supporter, longtime supporter, Sir Chasm, who gifted out 5 memberships to the Army of the Dead. So thank you very much, Sir Chasm, and welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Rodent, no last name, Raven Darkstar, Robert Biter, J-Verse, Some Werewolf. Let me see, make sure Some Werewolf, J-Verse, Robert Biter, Raven Darkstar, and Rodent, no last name to the Army of the Dead. Please enjoy those emojis. I hope you all dig them very, very much. So thank you very much for that support, Sir Chasm. You rock. Thank you. Very, very generous. Who do we have in the live chat tonight before we get kicking off? Let's see. First, we got Travis Brown, who was first up. Good to see you, sir. Who's a member of the Army of the Dead and a longtime Patreon supporter. Thank you very much, Travis. Good to see you. Casey Cooper as well is here. Thank you so much for being here, Casey Cooper, as well as Rodent No Last Name. Gabba Gabba to you. Please enjoy your new membership. And I see Dr. Nimrod as well. Good to see you, Dr. Nimrod. Thanks so much for hanging out tonight. Robert Biter's there. One of our big winners this past couple of weeks ago. He won, and I hope you enjoy your prize when it arrives. So I think it did arrive. So let me know, Robert. But it should be arriving here soon, hopefully. Teespring, you never know. But good to see you, Robert. Thanks for being here. Raven Darkstar as well. Thank you so much for hanging out. Says, I've been here since 6 o'clock and finally got my chat working. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, good to see you, Raven. Thanks so much for being here. Who else do we have? Who else I see? Jay Vers, there he is. Says, I actually thought there would be a break between season 4 and 5, but no, I missed the first episode. You guys are machines. Thank you very much, bud. We do appreciate that. And yes, why would we ever take a break? There's so many horror films to talk about.
Does horror take a break?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
It never does. And of course, we are big, like horror film throbbing brain filmmakers over here. So we constantly have shit that we have to talk about, that we want to talk about, that we want to just impress upon you. So there's always stuff to talk about. So no, we would never take a break. Absolutely. But thank you very much, Javers. We appreciate you being here. Always awesome. Robert Biter had us at 3 minutes, 20 seconds. I guess that was the pool for when we were going to go live. I got it in at 5 minutes. So there's always kind of a pool. Let's see. Hey, Sarcasm, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. As well as, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Charlie Welch, the only man on the internet you never make a bet with. Good to see you, Charlie, or Welchy, as we like to call him. Thank you so much for being here, bud. Joshua Lee as well says, hey, everyone. Good to see you, Josh. Appreciate you being here. Dr. Nimrod says, JL, that beard is looking fantastic. Almost ready for Christmas. Getting there. Getting there. I think I've just gotten past the Saruman phase. Now I'm trying to creep it towards like Santa and maybe even Gandalf territory one day. I think that'd be cool.
You have to go epic. You might as well go wizard.
Yeah, I'm trying to go full wizard. I'm trying to just full thou you shall not pass. That kind of thing. It's that's where the real power is. Ivy Gentry's here. Good to see Ivy Gentry. Says, I'm here, but going to lurk. My connection sucks. Well, we're glad you're lurking, Ivy. Thank you so much for hanging out. There's all those amazing emojis. I hope you all dig those. Thank you very, very much. Dr. Nimrod is a new member of the Army of the Dead. Thank you so much, Dr. Nimrod. You rock. We appreciate that support. Denova28's here, another one of our Patreon supporters, and of course, a member of the Army of the Dead. Good to see you, Denova. Appreciate you being here. As well as I see, full Gandalf. Yep, that's right.
Yep.
Oh, Casey Cooper says, hell with full wizard. Go full dwarf and tuck it in your pants. It's the beards. In fact, dwarf women and men are so alike in appearance. No, dwarf women are so alike in appearance, they're often mistaken for dwarf men. It's the beards. All right. So, we got amazing people in the chat tonight and amazing stuff to talk about. First and foremost, obviously, this being the first episode of the month of October, the spooky season has finally arrived. We love the spooky season here at Week in Horror. It's like the month this is literally the month that we live for. And I think virtually everybody loves it. There's no disagreement. Everyone loves the month of October because it has fucking Halloween in it. And Halloween is the best holiday ever. Yes. I don't think I'm wrong on that.
No, you're totally correct.
Absolutely.
It's like Halloween, and then the year could just end after that.
There you go. All we need is October. Just a year long. Christmas, fuck all the rest of them. Halloween Town. That's where we need to be hanging out. So, once we get through Halloween, oh crap, it's only 362 days towards Halloween. So, that's the kind of life, that's the kind of world we need to live in. So one of the cool things is what's interesting about this Halloween, but actually not just this Halloween, but this upcoming October, is there is a slew of fucking releases this month. A huge amount of releases coming out this month. And what I was curious about was there anything in particular out of all the movies that are hitting this October? Because there's a bunch, both on streaming and theaters, and VOD. So coming straight to VOD that are on all the streaming services, Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, and of course going to theaters as well. Is there anything in particular that you happen to be looking for or looking forward to?
So I'm looking forward to a couple of things. First of all, I'll talk about the ones I'm not looking forward to. Because there's some
okay.
So some of the ones I'm not looking forward to, and I think people know my feelings on exorcist movies or exorcism style movies. And for some reason, they feel like it's compelled to make another one, The Exorcist Believe, where there's 2 girls possessed. Ooh,
we're doubling the stakes.
Yeah, we're doubling down. And I'm just like, listen, you're genre capped in 1972. You peaked. It's just a long slide down. And for some reason, we're still on. So I'm definitely not. As soon I was watching the trailer, and as soon as like the little notes came in, I was like, popcorn flip.
Fucker through his shit. It's like, nope.
Nope, and okay, I'm still here, even though my camera says otherwise.
Well, I have to say, yes. So Travis Brown would like to point out it's Exorcist Believer, the Exorcist Believer. And so I will have to say I'm actually curious. While I like the Exorcist films, 1 and 3, one is legendary, 3 is fucking fantastic because of the direct work of Blatty and Friedkin. So 2 was just kind of like, people had problems with 2, and of course the two films that followed after that, prequel and it was like Dominion prequel to The Exorcist, and then like Exorcist. I can't remember the subtitle on that one, but I'm very curious because Blumhouse is involved, and I'm a Blumhouse fan. As much as Johnny hates that, and as much as Johnny hates their like Blumhouse does some good films, but Plothole has a real like Johnny has a real issue with some of what Blumhouse does. And while he wasn't a big fan of the Blumhouse the Halloween trilogy, Blumhouse is setting up the Exorcist films to be a new trilogy. So like Ellen Bernstein is signed on for 3 films. So this is going to be a David Gordon Green directed trilogy produced by Blumhouse in the same vein that they did the Halloween film. So they're kind of doing that again. And this is intriguing because Blumhouse is getting into trilogy territory by basically do these 3-picture deals. They've done the same thing with Five Nights at Freddy's, which is coming out. And Five Nights at Freddy's has Matthew Lillard signed on for a 3-picture deal. So there seems to be a new trend that Blumhouse is getting into is producing these set trilogies and signing directors to or signing the crews and the directors to 3-picture deals to get. I mean, I think it's awesome. So I'm curious about Exorcist Believer, but one that I'm super looking forward to, that I'm really looking forward to, is VHS 85, because
I was gonna say that
right.
In my list of movies I was looking forward to was VHS 85.
VHS 85, because I am a huge fucking sucker for anthology films. I love anthology films. Plus, VHS started the trend of having multiple directors in with different writers, all like small crews, all working together to put together a really awesome story. Plus, this is 1985, so it's 80s horror. It's 80s horror, and it's fucking anthology. I'm seriously looking forward to that. That's a big one I'm excited about. Is there any others? Is there any others you're looking forward to, or any others that you're absolutely dreading that you're not looking forward to?
So I am looking forward to is A Haunting in Venice.
Ooh,
it looked like the art direction in it looks really cool, set back in the past, and it's like, okay, were they killed by the dead or were they came back? And I was like, that's an interesting premise. And the way it's shot and basically just a cinematographer all really caught my attention. So I am looking forward to that. I'm kind of looking forward to Five Nights at Freddy's because it could be fun.
Right.
If it's like Willy's Wonderland, it could be really fun.
I think Five Nights at Freddy's is going to be pretty good. And you just like Haunting in Venice because you're all like you're just above us. Like your taste. You have like the elevated taste. So if you're gonna do horror, it's got to be like Kenneth Branagh horror. So it's like, oh yes, yeah, I'm so sophisticated.
Oh yes, this is absolutely horror to the highest degree.
So two that have my attention, but I don't know if I'm 100% sold on them, is Pet Sematary Bloodlines, which is a prequel, we watched the trailer, we watched the teaser for it, but here on Week in Horror. But Pet Sematary Bloodlines, that prequel film is coming out. After seeing the latest release trailer, I'm very curious about that one because that looks really well done. And this new one, have you heard anything about it, called Totally Killer?
So I've heard about it, but I have not seen the trailer for it.
Ah, okay. Well, I don't have the trailer here tonight, but for anybody who hasn't checked it out, check out the trailer for Totally Killer. Essentially, it's produced by Blumhouse's television division, and it's directed by Nunchaka Khan, and it's very much in the vein of Happy Death Day. Only instead of a time loop, it's time travel. So it's about a girl who goes back in time and winds up meeting her mother and then going on this like, you know, kind of like adventure, because in the present day, her mom is like all traumatized and shit, played by the amazing Julie Bowen. And she's all traumatized and everything because when she was a teenager, all of her friends were killed by the serial killer. And so years later, her daughter goes back in time and meets her mother when her mother was in high school back in the 80s. And because she has knowledge from the future, they try to stop the serial killer from killing all of her friends. So there's it's an oddball kind of time travel, you know, slasher film. But knowing Blumhouse, there's going to be some sort of interesting twist, or I would say twist, but interesting developments in the script, because I imagine that they'll play with like the paradox that her mother will change, and it's possible that by saving all of her friends, she may inadvertently wipe herself out of existence because, you know, causality and everything. So I'm kind of curious how they're going to play with that. So that one kind of has my attention. And plus, it's got Kiernan Shipka, who I loved in the New Adventures of Sabrina. So I'm curious about that one. Oh, and someone did mention, I see it. Where was it? Joshua Lee said, JL not excited for the Lovecraft movie coming out later. Madness. No, I am excited about the new one. And that new one is with Heather. I think that has Heather Graham. I believe it's called Suitable Flesh. Suitable Flesh is coming out. And number one, this sounds amazing. So it stars Heather Graham, right? And I don't think you can ever go wrong with Heather Graham. Not to mention also Bruce Davison and Jonathan Schock and Barbara Crampton. So horror icons we got in there. Directed by Joe Lynch. And it's an adaptation of, I believe, Dreams. Is it as an adaptation of Dreams in the Witch House? No, I may be wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. The adaptation. Oh, sorry. The Thing on the Doorstep. It is an adaptation of The Thing on the Doorstep. So I'm actually really kind of curious about how they're going to go into this, because it looks like it's a combination of psychological horror, body horror. So I'm curious about that one, but I don't know a ton about it. I just know that there's a lot of horror royalty kind of attached to it and a lot of talent involved in that script.
Well, that's all you need. And so right off the bat, like, that's interesting. And I'll definitely watch the trailer after we get done the podcast today.
Awesome.
And right off that's something interesting. Plus, I love Heather Graham. I haven't seen her do a lot lately. So it's good for her coming back. When you talked about Totally Killer, I started comparing Totally Killer to Happy Death Day. And what makes Happy Death Day work, or the best part of it, is Tree. The character. Like, she is hands down one of the best final girls. She may be the best, most recent final girl that's come out, at least in the last 5-6 years, with it. So if they can get characterization at that level, I think Totally Killer will be just fine.
Cool.
And I do like the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
It should be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be interesting. Not to mention, I really enjoyed Kiernan in The Blackcoat's Daughter. I thought it was such a departure from the roles that she normally plays. Like, she goes like super dark side in that one, which I mean, the girl can go to that degree. I'm just kind of curious, because I like how as an actress, she's willing to take on roles that challenge her, so that she doesn't get kind of like stuck in one particular, stereotype. So I like that she's constantly challenging herself. So I'm looking forward to this one, because it's a little bit more in the kind of like dark comedy area, whereas The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was, I still think, kind of like a young adult, kind of like tween version of that.
Oh, hands down.
Just a little bit darker. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you took the sitcom and you mixed it with like The Nightmare Before Christmas minus the still motion, where it's like a super fun Halloween town that they go, and they just had a play on every, it's not like Weddings or like a bride of Maid of Dishonor and a bunch of other kind of twists and stuff like that with it.
Yeah. Let's see. So we got some stuff in the live chat as well. Let's see. Josh Lee said there's a couple of movies I'm looking forward to. When Evil Lurks looks good. Yeah. Suitable Flesh as well. We just talked about that one. Weekend Horror. Oh, Plothole says, it's not that I don't like Blumhouse. I didn't like the new Halloween trilogy. You haven't had much positive to say about Blumhouse stuff. Some things, but not all things.
But this is the thing with Blumhouse, and we've talked about it before. What Blumhouse does is they invest. They'll instead of doing $100 million film, they'll do $10 million films, because they know if 4 of them hit, it'll cover the cost of everything. So they will throw stuff out there. Blumhouse has had a lot of misses, and Blumhouse honestly has probably had more misses than hits. But when Blumhouse hits,
they
Get Out, Whiplash, The Purge, so forth and so forth. When Blumhouse hits, it really hits.
Absolutely. Travis Brown says, I may check out Five Nights because of Shaggy. Hell yeah, Matthew Lillard makes everything great. Absolutely. Dr. Nimrod says, dog forbid you should have a contrary opinion. LOL. That's true. Yeah, he can have a contrary opinion. Travis Brown says, Nicolas Cage is a new film coming out about going into people's dreams. I did hear about that one. Don't know a lot about it. I'll look into it.
I just pictured a really bad version of Inception.
Yeah. Let me see. Javier Hara, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Says, hey guys, start praying. The power of Gandalf compels you. The power of Gandalf compels you. Or give some surreal drawings to convince Eugene. Yes, definitely some surreal storyboards will help. It absolutely will. Let's see. Raven Darkstar says, I watched Werewolf by Night last night. And well, it made no sense for me as a comic fan. Oh, that was the new Marvel short that came out. That came out in black and white, and I think they're reissuing it. They're going to do a re-release, and they're going to put it in color, which I think is a mistake. But I thought Werewolf by Night was pretty good. Joshua Lee says, Viejos looks really interesting. That's the Spanish one about old people that go fucking crazy. I honestly think because I saw the movie Old, which was a Norwegian film about old people that go crazy. So I think Viejos is in the same vein as that film. So I saw like Viejos, was like, oh, that sounds like the Norwegian film that came out in 2022. Or I think it was late 2022 called Old. Robert Biter says, I love time travel. 12 Monkeys, although not horror, is still in my top 5. 12 Monkeys was amazing. Anacido Maldonado, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Says, hello, everyone. Good to see you, Anacido. Let me see. Oh, awesome. Casey Cooper said, I just downloaded the complete Lovecraft and the Howard Cthulhu book to my Kindle. Awesome. Very cool. Enjoy those. Plotto, I didn't see you make any suggestions. I see you said I'm ignoring your suggestions. I don't see any suggestions you made. Where did you make a suggestion? Let me see. Plot hole. Which one? Oh, I see Sally Skellington is here. Good to see you, Sally. Thanks so much for being here. Good thing I scrolled up. Wrote in no last name. Gabba to you. Oh, yes. Toxic Avenger. Fuck yes. Oh, Plotto says 11-6. I'm looking forward to that one. That'd be great. Yeah, when it gets done. I feel like I'm being mean. Anyway, but yeah, there's a bunch of stuff coming out, but I want to point out, and I think everybody in the live chat noticed, nobody said Saw X. No, nobody said Saw X, so I find that really, really entertaining. No one said Saw X, but that's coming out as well. Not to mention, we watched the trailer for it last week. We watched the trailer for Thanksgiving, which looks like an Eli Roth produced, or maybe directed by Eli Roth. Yes, directed by Eli Roth, about a Thanksgiving slasher. So it's going to be super gory. Not to mention, Dear David is coming out. Dear David is based on that. It was like a Twitter thread that was created by writer Adam Ellis, because he created a Twitter thread where he's telling a story about a blogger who encounters a ghost, and so that apparently went viral, and now that got adapted to it, and they adapted to a film. Not to mention Dark Harvest coming out. So Dark Harvest, directed by David Slade, and that's about a bunch of teens who confront a legendary supernatural monster that emerges in the cornfields of a small Midwestern town every fall. So teens take on the Great Pumpkin, essentially what that is. So, but there's a bunch of stuff coming out this October. So many choices. Oh, let's see. Plottle says, excuse me, sir. You should look at the co-host sitting next to you. Ooh!
You can't see me!
I can't see him. Where'd he go?
It's only a nipple, and sometimes it moves.
Skid Scratcher, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Always good to see you in the chat. Casey Cooper says, no one wants to see Saw. How about Teeter? Oh, no one wants to see Saw. How about Teeter Totter? You're funny. Yes, that's very big. Yes, very cute. Very cute. Oh, Travis Brown says, teens take on the He Who Walks Behind the Rose. Yes, Kind of like Children of the Corn. Gotcha. Dr. Nimrod says, if by saw X you mean sawing musk in half really slowly with a blunt saw, then yes, please. Yeah, there's a lot of issues over there on the new X platform, especially if they start charging. If they do that, that's an interesting thing. If Musk starts charging for Twitter, like we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose the Daily Splatter on Twitter.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna pay for that. No,
I'm not paying Musk to to do that. So it will only be on Facebook and Instagram, but we'll lose the Daily Splatter on Twitter if Musk starts charging for it. To be like, nope, cancel that.
Well, I guess his idea was to like spend $40 billion on Twitter and then just destroy it because like why not?
Such a child. He's such a child.
I mean, like seriously, like. I guess when you have that much money and you can shoot rockets off for fun in space and you can like nothing is like basically out of reach for you. Like, is that just what you do? I don't know. I don't know.
I guess it's what billionaires do. Like we have no idea. If we were billionaires, we'd be like making movies and shit. But
that's just us. Just trying to make the world a better place by introducing some new horror. That's all we would want to do.
Definitely. NA is here. Good to see you, NA. Thanks so much for being here tonight. And Joshua Lee says, there's always Tumblr.
Bring back Vines. That's what I want to bring back.
Right. All right. Well, we have got some horror movies to talk about tonight. So, Eugene, why don't you kick us off? What do we have up first?
All right. First, we have Even Lambs Have Teeth, which was released October 1st, 2015. Roll it.
What? In a month, we are going to be shopping in New York City.
Oh my God. I am so proud of you. Working an organic farm. I just think that's great.
Well, we're only doing it so we can go shopping in New York.
You don't have to wait for the bus. We could drive you up to the farm.
Where are we?
Home sweet home.
You've been trapped.
Trapped!
You better get them before they make it to the highway.
I can't decide. Take them both. We have a problem.
We need gas for this.
You're feeling better.
Those things are awesome. I guess we're kind of monsters now, too.
Well, now that you just watched Even Lambs Have Teeth, the entire film, I'll go into Even Lambs Have Teeth was directed by Terry Miles, and it stars Christian Prout, Tierra Shovbev, Garrett Black, James Parker, Michael Carl Richards, Patrick Gilmore, and Gwyneth Welch. And basically, as you can tell from the trailer, two girls go to work on an organic farm, run into some strangers, and the strangers traffic them so they can use as adult slaves. The girls escape and wreak their revenge. And I don't even want to say, I don't want to say it from this movie because it really it doesn't. It really doesn't, because the problem with this movie is when they're getting their revenge, it was almost as if they were looking for a reason to be serial killers and they finally had it.
Okay, yes. So I can definitely see that. One, it has to be said, in this vein of horror, which is often called, which is the subgenre of rape and revenge, which has a long and tried, history in the horror genre, going back to things like Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave, Straw Dogs. There's a number of them. I mean, so many have been done to, there was what I felt after watching this movie was that there was something fundamentally missing from this particular deal. Like we're gonna do an R&R film, but R&R films have an essential, I would think, in my opinion, an essential like cinematography or a cinematographic aesthetic that is necessary for pushing the essence of that level of extremity in the characters that you're meeting. So, for example, when you're establishing your protagonist, the protagonists, they're arguably the heroes, and you have individuals that don't exhibit these kinds of horrifying traits. So, in the plot, they're pushed to those extremes. There is a particular aesthetic that speaks subconsciously to the audience to reflect the turmoil and the trauma and the transformation of the protagonist into the vengeful killer that they become. Movies like Straw Dogs, movies like I Spit on Your Grave and Last House on the Left, these convey that transition extremely well, because the whole subject is about the protagonist and what happens to them, and then their transition and their transformation. That's what we need to be able to hook into, so that we can follow them and we can feel justified in the actions that they're doing, because it's all about that kind of like vicarious justification of violence. We're living through them, imagining what kind of like we can identify what we would do with them. What this film lacked was, number one, that aesthetic. And two, because of what I found out, it was hard for me to kind of articulate this, but I can only describe it as the film was too clean. That was the issue, is like, as the film progressed, it maintained this cleanliness that I thought was unreal. That was unrealistic in any way.
It came across as like a CW film. Like,
right.
That was the entire feel of it. And it was like they didn't have really any redeeming qualities that made you care for them, except for when the assault was happening. It's like, oh, the assault's happening, that's really terrible, we feel bad. And it's like, as soon as they escape and they're going through the hardware store, and you have this like upbeat kind of like a girl punk, like I've used the term punk very loosely, but a girl pop punk music that's coming in, and they're like, oh, we're gonna get revenge, and they're getting all their supplies and everything like that. And I was just like, and it wasn't, when they're going through the kills, it wasn't like a desperation for closure for what happened to them. It wasn't like we need to rid the world of them because we don't want this to happen to anybody. I never got, even despite the fact that there came across two more girls later on, it was like well, this happened, we get to kill people and it's okay. That's how I felt. Like, that's how the
exactly.
Girls like,
there's never one of the things that makes this particular subgenre sometimes difficult for people to watch is because the narrative typically allows the audience to internalize that horrifying trauma, and how the only way to deal with that trauma, other than like self-destruction, is essentially just the explosive destruction that is wrought around them, because the protagonists are being driven by their emotion. But as they're moving, as is evidence in the films I named before, and not to mention many, many others, as the individuals move, as the protagonist moves from revenge kill to revenge kill, there is a moment of internalization where they themselves are internalizing the harm that they're doing, and the character has to find a way to reconcile that. There is the notion that what you're doing makes you as bad as them. Are you fully justified for what you're doing? And so the protagonist, who has a particular mindset from the beginning of the film, is now forced to look at the world in a different way, and that can cause dissonance. And that's what's very, very important, because we too would feel that cognitive dissonance. And that's never portrayed here. These girls literally went from 0 to 60 in record time, and literally just flip the switch. It's like fantastic. It's almost like the person who's walking around like, I just hope someone takes a swing, because that's what I'm waiting for.
That's exactly what I mean. They actually is like, cool, we're killers anyway. Now we have an excuse.
Right.
And
so,
and they go off. And then on top of that, when you're looking at their dad,
the uncle following them.
Yeah, the uncle following them. Other than the whole code word thing, he didn't do very much.
Most inept FBI agent I've ever seen.
Yeah,
in a film.
Yeah. It was just really the code word thing is kind of weird. The code word felt like a plot device from the get go. Because who does that? Maybe outside of like an espionage movie like Born Identity, where they do something like that. That kind of makes sense for that type of film. But hey, here's just a code word that you can. It felt weak
for that kind of stuff. I mean, you would expect something like that in a movie like Taken, which is you expect, because the film in a movie like Taken, in an action film like that, Liam Neeson's character is set up like literally he is like divorced from his wife. He's on the outs with virtually everybody. And anybody from like his civilian life really doesn't like him, because it's established that he is his job made him like ultra paranoid. So he does this like naturally everywhere. And the only like respite that character has is with his friends who were also, in the agency. And so they all know they're on the inside. It's kind of like the difference between military and civilians, which I think you can speak to. There is an unspoken language there, a recognition of certain aspects of the world that they have in common that civilians typically don't. That makes sense in a character like Liam Neeson's in the movie Taken. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it'll come to me in a second. But in this one, this FBI agent is portraying that, but we're never backed up. So he just comes off as a weirdly, unjustifiably paranoid individual who does it. So that makes the trope, turns it into a trope that's just designed to drive the plot. Then you have these girls who never go through any kind of internalization when they're given moments to do so, like when they're driving the truck. When they're driving the truck and they're listening to their music like this, they're happy as can fucking be. There's no internalization of the horrors that they're literally road hauling a motherfucker right at that moment, and it's all good. Everything's fine. That was funky. So Sir Chasm brings up, you need to be able to sympathize with the victims and hate the bad guys, neither of which happened. Yes, the act of the rape is horrific, and we can internalize the horror of that, the horror of like sex trafficking rings and such like that these things happen. It's reflective of a reality, but no one was human in this. There were no human victims in this portrayed. Their humanity was never on display. So we're never given the opportunity to sympathize with the victims, and the bad guys were beyond next level dumb. Yeah. It's like, how stupid can you be? So we've got stupid bad guys that deserve that. I mean, obviously, we can say they deserve to die, but they're too stupid to live. It's like, there's no challenge here. The girls literally escape first opportunity they get, and then they decide to turn around and they wreak bloody havoc, and nobody calls the police on them ever.
That was my thing. Like, I understand the fact that girls knew the sheriff was in on it. Like, the girls knew that. So why didn't you go to the town over? Or why didn't you go to like state trooper, or why don't you go even to another state and report that what happened and start some kind of investigation? There are so many avenues that they could have gone that they just didn't. And and the thing is, like, you're right, the movie as a whole is dumb. The whole thing with the tennis balls and the nails, unless you are a professional pitcher that can throw a ball 80 to 90 miles an hour, right? You cannot throw a tennis ball hard enough where it's going to severely fuck somebody up. Will the nails go into the body and make somebody bleed? Absolutely. That's totally fine. And it's probably going to sting for a little bit, and then you're just going to keep going. Like that. That's just the way it is.
Right.
So the movie's dumb as a whole.
And overall, I think that it was just like, I think that it was the thing that kind of dragged the movie down. The biggest thing that hurt it, just by looking at it, because when you look at when the subgenre was first kind of established, those early films that came out, from directors like Wes Craven, who was willing to push boundaries to that extreme, you have a particular mentality around women themselves, and also around men, and the kind of like the relation, the almost kind of like these the ideas of these relationships of like women in this particular place and men in this particular place at the time of the 70s, so the 60s and the 70s, there was this growing understanding that there's a level of equality between them, that the idea that the guy is ostensibly like above the woman and the woman is subservient to the man, and the woman should give to the man, like should acquiesce to the man's desires and wants any particular time, and the whole like 50s concept of like, giving bad signs, like, and the whole victim blaming mentality. Directors who were willing to take on the rape and revenge subgenre were challenging that idea, in that there is an equal autonomy between men and women, and men simply cannot take what they want, and women have the right to defend themselves to an extreme level, just like men do. So it evened the playing field. In the 70s, that was a very, very challenging position, because that was literally asking the question to women, what would you do and how far would you go? Now, that was in the 70s. That prevailed through the 80s, and I would say into the 90s as well. That really didn't change. But there's a difference. What didn't exist in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s to the degree that it exists now, and I would say, obviously we'd agree, it's the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And generationally, we have changed. Like the world has changed as this new generation has come up. There was a disassociation in this film, that in the writing of this film, in the writing of these characters, that I think reflects the generation that came up solely with the internet, where when people are on the internet, there is a natural dissociation with the people that you interact with, because they're not people, they're voices and their faces on a screen, which has resulted in the vast majority, and because the vast majority of our interactions are online with people and not in person. We do jobs online, we shop online, we meet our friends online, things like Discord.
Oh, no. The internet doesn't get the blame.
No. I'm not blaming the internet. No, I'm not blaming the internet.
I know you're talking about with the writers. This movie is just pure lazy writing.
Well, that's why I'm looking for why that reason is. And it's literally the whole subgenre of rape and revenge itself has changed, because fundamentally the generation that has come up in that has a fundamentally different outlook on the interpersonal relationships in between men and women and extreme action and how people act on each other. So, for example, the characters that are written here, the way I view it, are written by a person who understands that natural dissociation from people who spend more time online than in front of other people.
Because lazy writing is lazy writing. Whatever. I don't care where they come from or the new generation. Every year, fantastic movies come out that are well written. Fantastic horror movies come out every single year. So unless there's a year that comes out where every single movie is just bad, then maybe it's some external factor. The factor is that the director and the writer and the producers didn't care. They didn't care. I know you're going about in terms of the genre. No, it's not in terms of they didn't care about the characters. They didn't care about the putting in a level of effort to making this movie the way it should be.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a number of ways it could have been better. Now, the film in the live chat here, I see that the film is getting a lot of praise for its cinematography, that it was well shot, it was well lit. My problem with cinematography and just with the photography in itself was because I felt that it was too clean. Everything is too clean. The colors are well demarcated. There is no grime. There is no the purpose of the slow degradation of the cinematography is to convey to the audience in the subtext of the audience of the slow degradation of the humanity of the protagonist. That as they go down this journey, they themselves are slowly degrading, and the cinematography reflects that. So when people get dirty, people get nasty, people get screwed up. When you see the very world around them seems to decay. Colors are darker. Things are grimier. That's the whole point of that, is that the world is decaying because the protagonist is decaying in a way. And I thought, because that was missing, that's why I'm thinking that the minds behind this maybe are aware of it, but they were not. That's why I don't think it's lazy writing. I think it's writing what you know. And that's why I'm saying that this approach doesn't trying to do this kind of movie doesn't fit narratively what used to be done back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. That generationally, mentalities have changed to such a degree that the old notions of rape and revenge and what made those films compelling simply doesn't come across to this new generation.
No, they're not getting a pass on this one because all they
I'm not
have
trying
to
to
do
save
is,
the film. I'm not trying to save the film. I'm
that-
just saying I think I understand where they're coming from.
No, that's the thing is I don't understand where they're coming from because if they wanted to do their homework, then they could have. And the thing is like they didn't. And if you look at Sarcasm's comment, he talks about well lit and the characters were in frame, the cinematography the only saving grace, and it was just average.
Yeah, it was pretty basic.
It was nothing. There was nothing to go home about. But whenever I'm doing homework for a movie and I'm approaching like the movie Trick that recently won a film festival, I went back and I looked at. I was like, I want to mimic the style of Italian cinema in the 1970s, the abstract cinema. So I went back and I did things like I watched Suspiria again, Fulci, Dario Argento.
Fuck yeah!
I went and I did my homework. And if I'm gonna make a assault and revenge movie, I'm gonna go back and look at the best films in that genre to go, okay, what can I take from this, and then what parts can I make my own? And they just didn't.
They did it all. Yeah,
they did it all. I was like, the people who made this movie are people where somebody else is a horror fan and brought something, but they've never seen a horror movie in their life.
I'm sorry. Ranger Rivera says, for a second here, I heard the rough startup of the TP9000. No, so I wasn't trying to start it up. That's why I want to say I'm not trying to salvage the film. And there is one thing that I cannot fucking forgive this film for. Well, I don't care if it was the director. I don't care if it was the writer. I don't care whatever. There is one thing I cannot forgive for this film. This is the tamest fucking R&R film I have ever seen in my life. Yes. R&R films are not supposed to. Okay, I'm sorry. By definition, this is what I'm stating. As a person who has done a horror podcast for these years, with my knowledge of horror, my understanding of horror, R&R films cannot definitionally be tame. They cannot. They are supposed to be raw. They're supposed to be cruel. They're supposed to be violent, and they are supposed to challenge the notions of challenge literally the philosophical notion of what morality is. About challenging justifications for extreme levels of violence due to extreme level of violence being done back at you. That is supposed to make the audience talk. All this does, when I walked away from this film, even though at the end it had that little kind of like twist, like, ooh, they only got some members, because they revealed that the one dude is like, oh, he's still involved. They didn't actually stop anything. Even with something dumb like that, wasn't a saving grace, because I walked away from the film literally saying, this is what's wrong. Like this right here is if horror reflects reality, this right here is what's wrong with like the vast majority of the current generation. I came away more cynical because if this is what this director and this writer think, or if this is what this writer thinks this new generation is like, that's not good, because you've got dumb teenagers who make really dumb decisions, getting in cars and driving off with strangers, going into their homes. Who fucking does that? We know not to do that. That's basic cautionary tale shit. Yet they do it anyway because one of them's super horny and the other one's like, I don't want to disappoint my friend. Because that whole stupid sequence in the woods at the beginning of the film was supposed to establish their characters. So dumb. Could have been done so much better and so much more effectively. And a bit more nuanced so we could have a little bit of a bonding between these two girls. And then they go into this, and then they're in this situation, and they just switch to fucking mass murderers in a heartbeat. And then at the end of the film, once it's all said and done, they just flip back like everything's all good. No trauma, all set, even keel, we'll go about our lives. We're all happy. If that's what they think people are like, I'm scared of where they got their inspiration, because that's disturbing.
So you're still going from the standpoint that they want to be good filmmakers. That's not the case. That's like saying The Butcher represents every horror film in the 2000s. Like, no. These particular people who made this film, I don't know what their deal is. I don't know what their problem is, whether maybe they wanted to make something because they just had money or just whatever. And a lot of times when you have these films like this, you have one guy who happens to have money who's like, I want to be a filmmaker. And then they just hire a crew, and this is kind of what you get, this product, because the person who made this movie is not a fan of horror. Hands down, they missed the mark so bad.
I wouldn't say that they're not a fan of horror. I would say they have they lack a fundamental understanding of the genre. That's the problem. Not only the genre, but the subgenres contained therein. That it's a fundamental misunderstanding or a lack of understanding of the nuances there and why these things are so important. And it's why we harp on them so much.
That is clearly they lack a fundamental understanding. But even if you take somebody who is not as invested in horror as we are, somebody who's, let's just say they just like to watch horror movies for the sake of watching horror movies, and they're not filmmakers.
He's watching the wrong horror movies, don't tell you that.
and that's why I think that they're not horror fans. Not even aficionados like us, but they're not even horror fans. That they're somebody who likes fun Hallmark movies, and they're like, oh, let's make a movie. We have some money. Horror's cheap. Let's just make horror, and they just win that. They don't understand the genre at any level.
Yeah, I came away bummed. I came away more cynical, and I was just kind of like, if this is the understanding, then it's kind of depressing. And if this is what they think the new generation is like, if they're trying to like reflect this as a combination cautionary tale and just like how dissociated we are, maybe they didn't attempt to do it. Maybe it was just accidental. Maybe the writer who wrote it and like who was the mind behind this thing? Fucking Terry Miles. Okay, Terry Miles both wrote and directed this. If Terry Miles thinks that this is reflective, like this is an honest reflection of reality, then there's some sort of like serious disconnect here. Either like it's definitely a disconnect between the genre, the subgenre itself, but this is a disconnect with like people, because people, I wouldn't say it would be convincing to convey people acting like this. Now, I will give this: there were some decent moments, some very silly moments, but like the moment when she walks into the fucking church and distracts the preacher guy. When she walks through the church, distracts him, it was like, and he's like, Jesus on my side, I'm going to get you. And I'm like, you do realize that there's two of them, you stupid fuck, because it was like, and the minute she clocked him on it, was like, he's like, I'm going to get you. She's like, it was like, because I've got Jesus. She's like, I have a BFF. And then thunk, and I was like, haha, clever girl. Because the attack came from the one you never saw coming. I was like, there were some inspired moments. I will say this: as long as they were road hauling that motherfucker, there would not have been that much left of him. As long and as fast as they were road hauling him, there would not have been enough left of him to burn alive. He just would have been chunks if they had done that. But
and not to mention, someone mentioned in the comments, it's like you're gonna drag a body through Main Street all the way to the house, and no one said anything.
No, dude, if you watch closely, there's when they're driving, they're like in one of those shots, there's a car right like behind them, like driving behind them, like you can see a vehicle. Like it was like, wait a minute, there's a vehicle behind them. Oh, okay. So, they're saying, okay, so they're just driving through town and nobody's paying attention. But no, once you realize they stop at the bait shop and they're road hauling someone, because then they turn around and they walk out in the parking lot and burn him alive. Wait a minute. They were road hauling him. There was a car behind them. Nobody called that in? Are you like nuts? It was like, at that moment, I was like, these girls do not give a fuck if they get caught. They don't give a shit. At this point, they're like, if somebody catches them, they're going away for a long time. It was just so completely dissociated from reality, not just extreme reality, but just like in and of itself, just nonsensical. Didn't make any sense. Like plot holes all over the place. No offense, plot hole out there. No offense, Johnny. But yeah, it was deeply, deeply problematic. There are so many better ones out there that actually say something about humanity and morality and actually challenge people's views. This one did not at all.
It does. It's like, what other stuff has he done? And I mean, his average rating on films out of 10 is like 5, 5.2, 5.2, 4.9. He did Lonesome Dove Church. Dawn Rider, Recoil. Like, he's just not a good filmmaker.
Rodinello's name does bring up, there wasn't enough grape in my grape movie. Even that. It's supposed to be horrific. There was something very, very, and this is so fucked up. This sounds so fucking twisted because it's an R&R film. And Rodin brings up a valid point. Even those sequences were so sanitized that I couldn't connect to them. Because, we get a few kind of reactions and stuff. It's kind of like the girls' reactions. Oh, I'm scared and everything. And I get that. But there's the stakes. How can the stakes be? If you're conveying this, sex traffickers have you. They're bringing people in to do this to victimize these girls. How can you sanitize that? How can you possibly portray that in a clean way? It was like, convey these things. They're supposed to be horrific. They're supposed to drive us to connect. And it's not there. And it was like, really? I was like, yes, yeah. There's so many more that do it better. So many more out there that do it better and are far fucking scarier.
Yeah, okay. We've talked about this piece of trash enough. I want to ask the audience, what do you feel is the most terrifying R&R horror film?
The most terrifying?
Most terrifying R&R assault and revenge horror films. We already mentioned a couple, like I Spit on Your Grave and Last House on the Left. And there's quite a few I Spit on Your Graves.
And the remakes and everything, yeah.
And there are others out there. There are some great revenge horror films out there. But yeah, what is the most terrifying one to you? And right off the bat, we're getting I Spit on Your Grave, I Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left, and specifically OG 73 one, which I have to agree.
Oh yeah, the old school stuff. Yeah, was like those really push boundaries, which makes them so important. And then you got movies like Revenge, which I think Revenge did it really, really well. Even though that wasn't really like an R&R, that was really just more of a revenge film. But it's about these guys who attack this girl, and she winds up they think they killed her, but they didn't, and then she comes back, and that was actually because the action sequences and the violence that were pretty extreme. So I really enjoyed that one. Avenged was a good one. Straw Dogs I thought was quite good.
There was that one. Was it No One Lives? That was a good one.
No One Lives is an interesting one, even though not an R&R, but
not an R&R, but definitely revenge.
Yeah. So there's a number. Irreversible was a fantastic one with Monica Bellucci. Irreversible is really fucking intense, like really extreme shit. So this subgenre is rough. It can be very, very hard. But that's the point. That's why I appreciate the subgenre, the existence of the subgenre, because it's meant to challenge. Horror is meant to challenge. And films like Even Lambs Have Teeth don't. When you literally use your teeth to rip out a human being's throat, you do it like Walking Dead did it when Rick did it to that motherfucker. You do it like that. You don't do it all sanitized where you can't see shit in this film. It's fucking ridiculous. Just totally shied away from the whole point.
It definitely. And listen, Jeremy, anytime you have a guy who hides inside another guy so that he can sneak in is going to be a badass move. I'll always vote for a body inside another body.
Luke Evans was fucking hard. Yeah. That was fucking brilliant. Okay, so I do have to give out a giant thank you, a huge thank you to NANA for gifting 5 memberships to the Army of the Dead, as well as Sarcasm for gifting another 6 memberships to the Army of the Dead. Thank you all so much. Welcome all the new members. I hope you enjoy the emojis that I made for you. So thank you very much for those generous contributions. Sarcasm and NANA, you guys rock.
Yes, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate that. Great.
And a quick hello to Extra J and Donnie Does That, who popped into the chat. Good to see you. Jeremy Duncan as well. Good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you guys hanging out. And make sure I didn't miss anybody else. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Raven Darkstar, Jodie Foster, The Accused. Movies like that. Yep. Yes. Or what was that? There was one with Sally Field and Kiefer Sutherland. Where that didn't go hardcore into the assault version, but it went really hardcore into the moral questioning, which is really important. So that was another good one.
Yeah, because
I think it was Eye for an Eye. I think it was Eye for an Eye.
Because there are a couple that deal more with like the abuse side, and then they end up getting revenge on like their partner.
Oh, like Sleeping with the Enemy.
Yeah, like Sleeping with the Enemy with
yeah.
Julia Roberts. Yeah.
Yes. So many good ones. And Rubber? Really? The fucking tire? Thank you, Jeremy. Oh yeah. All right. So let's talk about our now. Oh, definitely let us know down in the comments below what you think is the most terrifying R&R horror film, because there are a bunch out there way better than Even Lambs Have Teeth. You know, God, I wish. Ooh, Hard Candy with Elliot Page. Yes, Hard Candy was pretty intense. With her, him and Patrick Wilson. Patrick Wilson, fucking woo. Because you see him in like, it's always weird to see Patrick Wilson do like play a bad guy, because you see him in like the Conjuring films. You see him in he was Owlman and Watchmen when he's playing good guys. He plays good guys so well, but when you see him play a bad guy, like in The Tall Grass or in Hard Candy, it's always so creepy because it's such a shift.
Play against the norms, yeah.
Play against type. Always a good choice to play against type. All right, let's. What did Sir Cav say? Oh, let me see here. Well, our next film. Let's jump into our next film. We have got Possessor, which released October 2nd, 2020. So it's a fairly recent one. Let's check out this trailer. Fire up the terror tube.
You have a very special nature. One we've worked hard together to unlock. Pull me out. The results are normal. Anything you want to flag? No, I'm fine. Mom! Hi, darling.
How was your trip?
Dull. Extraordinarily dull. Our next contract's a big one. The target is the CEO of the largest operation in the U.S. He'll be binding to Colin Tate. We can't afford any mistakes on this one.
Ready?
What's with you today?
What do you mean? I'm in place.
Can we help you?
Finish this.
What are you doing? I can't pull the trigger.
I need to know. I need to know what she's done to me.
It's become a danger.
Where is she? Come out or I'll do it!
Sometimes that small thought is all it takes to lose control.
All right, so that was the trailer for Possessor, which was a psychological horror film that came out, like I said, October 2nd, 2020, written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg, son of the legendary, oh my God, how did I forget? What the fuck? Son of, I've lost my mind, David Cronenberg. How did I fucking drop that ball?
I was just gonna wait.
You suck. You could have just said something. Son of the legendary
miss out on that moment.
Son of the legendary David Cronenberg, and starring Andrea Riseborough, who people may remember from Mandy, Christopher Abbott, Rossif Sutherland, Tuppence Middleton, the effervescent Sean Bean, or Sean Bon, or Sean Bean, however you want to pronounce it, and of course the lovely Jennifer Jason Leigh. The film follows an assassin, kind of like in an alternate future, where Tasia Voss, who's an assassin, who takes control of other people's bodies in order to perform hits on the company's targets. And so she's able to body jump into people in order to create more, I would say, acceptable narratives in committing these assassinations. And unfortunately, in her latest one, the person she jumps into is at a point able to fight back and retake control. So she winds up stuck in their body, and then begins a battle of wills between the individual, between the victim and the jumper, between the assassin and the victim, as they vie for control of the body, and she tries to get out and survive the scenario. So something that's really, really interesting. Jeremy Duncan brings up, this looks more like a drama than anything. So, and Sarcasm brings up gnarly special effects. This one, I'm going to go rogue and say that I really liked it. Slow burn worth it. Yes. The horror in Possessor is not so much what's happening directly, like what's happening in the physical world, her interactions with the world, or the murder, or the extreme violence of the kills that she's committing, like when she does what she does to Sean Bean's character, or the first kill when she stabs the dude to death. What the real horror in this, the psychological horror in the aspect here, is the examination of human identity. Whereas I would say where Brandon's father David focused more on the body as the body as both like the external expression of self, and of course the enemy of self. Brandon goes a little bit more inward and more introspectively, as in the identity is the expression of the self, and of course how that can be turned into an enemy against you. And so the battle of wills between the two characters, and how that is surrealistically portrayed as one identity overtakes the other identity, and then one vies back control for the other one, and the disassociation that it's causing in Andrea Riseborough, in the character of Tasha's, that's where the horror lies, in both the visual aspect and, of course, internalizing what it's like to slowly but surely lose aspects of yourself the longer this character's doing this, like as it's slowly being, kind of taken away from you. But the fact that she's willingly allowing this to happen because she's really starting to enjoy what she does, and things like, her child and her husband are kind of like getting in the way. So that's the kind of horrific aspect, which I really dug. And I will agree, the film's a bit of a slow burn, but it is magnificently shot. One thing I'll say, and I hope you picked up on this, Eugene, all the interstitial shots, okay, were all spirals. They were spiraling. Okay. What I thought was really, really brilliant, what Brandon decided to do, was every time we do it, we have a transitional sequence where we're moving from one scene to the next. There were shots of the city or shots of like a building, and all the shots were slowly spiraling and getting closer. So it was spiraling inward, and you could see in the architecture of everything they're showing, you could see reflections of the golden ratio in there. So what I interpret that as, what Brandon was trying to convey in that, is that even in the spiral, because Andrea Riseborough's character herself is spiraling. In fact, if you look at it, all of the characters are spiraling in a way. So like even the son is spiraling under the crushing influence of his girlfriend, of his fiance's father. He's spiraling. And then, of course, the girlfriend is spiraling. Andrea Riseborough's character is spiraling, obviously, because of the torn between the love of the work that she does and her family, which is kind of like holding, kind of like gripping her humanity. Even Jennifer Jason Leigh, even Gerder, is spiraling herself because she's getting older, and she's got this epic, this amazing talent, this asset that's in her hands, and she can't lose her, because we get this feeling that, as good as her position is, things are very tenuous, that she could lose that position at any time. So everybody's fighting for control, and everybody is spiraling their own way. And Brandon chooses particular angles as a part of that spiral to convey the golden spiral, the golden ratio in that, because I think Brandon is conveying that even spiraling into madness or spiraling out of control has a kind of horrific symmetry, or a beautifully horrific symmetry to it. And I thought that was a brilliant way to convey that the closer and closer we get within that spiral, the deeper we're getting, and the worse off we're getting as these characters spiral closer and closer to out of control, just barely hanging on, which I thought was absolutely fucking brilliant in the way he did that, because it shows a level of artistic expression that I think his father David, really never got to. Like a subtle subtle artistic expression, whereas his father was more about the extreme nature, like Videodrome and The Fly and, and Rabid and shit like that. That's all like extreme in your face. This one was very, very cerebral. So it may turn some people off, but I was wondering, I thought it was brilliant.
So I thought it was okay. I did pick up on the spiral aspect of it. There were some things about the cinematography that was cool and some that I didn't like. A lot of the internalizing struggles uses a lot of like kind of weird filters or even stuff that was done in like post-production.
A lot of the oversaturation sequences where everything is just kind of like, okay,
where everything's kind of like it's like this waviness to it, and like I said, I'm not quite sure if it was either a filter they ran on the camera or maybe just something they added in post-production. I've never been a fan of those. That's why there's a lot of American Horror Story that I'm not a fan of, because it's like whereas like half of it's filtered and half of it's not for the sake of being weird. It doesn't really say anything. So like I like the spiral aspect, but then there's like some moments that I didn't like. I did notice how it does mix almost a little bit of a callback to the 80s, because when she's going into his body, if you notice, like when her face is like liquefying, and then like coming back, I was like
the mask scene. The opening scene when they're switching, when their identities are switching. Yes,
yeah, and I was kind of like, I feel like that's a nod to the 80s. Like,
absolutely. Absolutely. That was I took it as a nod to his father. It's kind of like,
exactly.
Look what you like, because it's all practical. It was just brilliantly practical. I mean, those like the reverse melting of the wax figures, that was absolutely stunning. I thought it was so well done.
Yeah, like that. So it was stuff like that that was like really cool that I really picked up on. In terms of the story as a whole, it didn't grab me as much as I hoped it would. It's one of those films where it wasn't bad, and this film is far better than I have to look up the name. Even Lambs Have Teeth.
Oh yeah,
we just talked about. So the movie's far better than that. But I wish I could get into it just a little bit more. It's a good film, but it's not like one of those where I want to go back and reference it all the time.
I would agree. I like this one. I mean, pretty much, if you're a fan of Andrea Riseborough, or if you want to follow up with Brandon Cronenberg as his career progresses, this is definitely one you want to catch. Brandon has definitely established himself as a director who is in the same vein as his father, but definitely a different aesthetic. So he's not trying to copy what his dad does. He's got his own level of expression, which you can see in his previous films, Antisocial, and his first film was Antisocial. This was his second, and his third one was Infinity Pool. So you see how he's developing aesthetic, especially between Possessor and Infinity Pool. I think he has a really, really good eye, and he's going in a different direction than his dad, but he himself also loves the body horror. And I loved the mask sequence in this one, as one character is vying for control as the victim, as that character is vying for control from Voss, that ostensibly taking her face and wearing that to portray that out into the world, and how the two of them are blending almost blended together, but not really, and how the two identities are kind of merging in that respect. I love how we conveyed that. I will say that some areas of it were a little too oversaturated with color, and I know he's trying to convey that, because in the realm of the mind, things are not going to be like cut and dry and clean. There's going to be a level of surreality to that, and I know he tried to convey that. And I think sometimes the details were important. Some of the details were important because we kind of got lost, having to look at almost like outlines or shadows to try and discern what was going on. But overall, I thought it was a strong effort, and I thought it was a great reflection of. Also, very similar. Okay, other than Even Lambs Have Teeth, this film is also an examination, I think, in a way of disassociation, where we see her identity crumbling and spiraling away as the more times she jumps into bodies. It's almost like every time she comes back, she leaves pieces of herself behind, and so her tenuous connections to the things that ground her humanity, which are slowly being stripped away, which is something we can see that the character Gerder wants to happen, because it'll make her a more effective and more efficient killer. And so she's torn between these two things, between Gerder and her family, trying to vie for like the control. The film is all about control. It's all about the control itself, which is why suicide is such a prevalent thing, and which is why typically when they're leaving, the job is done, they end on a suicide, because it's all about reestablishing control of oneself. And Gerder's vying for control of Voss. Voss is vying for control of herself and for control of the person that she jumped into. The individual, typically suicide is as an expression of regaining control, the last ditch effort for someone to control themselves, to take control of their life by ending it. And that's conveyed there as well. So it's all about control, and all about how, as tight as, I think the allegory there, or the metaphor there, is oftentimes we struggle so hard to control things and to hold on to them, we end up losing them, which is what's being conveyed in this story here. Which is kind of like, I would say, is kind of like the allegory of the film. Is that sometimes you hold on to things so tightly that you wind up losing them, trying to do that. And so I thought it was a gorgeously done film that had a couple of missteps here and there, but nothing that I would say detracts from it. A solid effort as far as like a sophomore effort from a burgeoning director. And of course, with Infinity Pool, he blew it out of the water. The difference is that, and one thing I wanted to bring up, which struck me, is that I felt that Possessor would have hit a little different maybe 10 years ago. So not in 2020, but 2010. This film would have hit differently in 2010, I think, or maybe even like 2005, because now we're in a post Black Mirror world. So in this post Black Mirror world, where we are seeing the kind of cautionary tales of as we get, essentially with Black Mirror, we're examining how close we get to the singularity, the idea that technology and humanity is coming together in such a way that it's blurring the lines between the two, and blurring the lines of what it means to be human. And so when we're looking at how technology can be utilized for dark ends, or can be, can be misused if someone's, because human emotion is so unpredictable, that in a post-Black Mirror world, this film hits a little different. In a pre-Black Mirror world, I think this would hit really, really differently. But now we're used to this kind of level. Weird sci-fi technology is becoming more and more actual. It's not like we're looking at it and saying, wow, this would be totally impossible. It's not like watching Star Trek, and then like 4 decades later now, or like 40 years later, we have cell phones everywhere. No, this is like in Black Mirror when we examine these. So there's a different kind of mentality. So I think this one hits a little different nowadays because it's not so extreme. So I think maybe a little early it would have been stronger. It would have hit a little bit different.
I agree because of the content out there, because the big influx we're seeing in content right now is genre films. And what a genre film is a film that is specifically designed to go on streaming under a certain genre, and it just hits the check marks. And that's exactly what it is. It's like, okay, we're going to do this one film. We're going to release on Netflix. Check. Genre films to me are films like The Atom Project. All right, we need action. We need a quick character. Ryan Reynolds. All right, we need some action. Blah, 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 blah. And you watch the film, and genre films can be good and they can be enjoyable. But what ends up happening is that they're forgettable. Because they just check down this list, and then once they finish all the... and you're like, I enjoyed that. And then it's just out of your mind. There's no risk taking. There's no part that stays. And I'm not saying that this film is a genre film. What I'm saying is that because you have this overflux of genre films, and this film is shot a lot like a lot of these genre films, it's very a lot of genre stuff. But am I still roboting?
Yeah, I think we might have broken up a little bit.
Okay. Am I back now?
Oh, I think you're good now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this film would have done better 10 years ago because people are still going to the theaters and doing less streaming content. Versus, I think a lot of people today will look at this and go, oh, well, this is going to be the same as Gray Matter or so forth and so forth of these genre films, and lump it into that genre, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Fascinating. Interesting. Well, I definitely feel this one may put some people off. As Sarcasm pointed out, it is a bit of a slow burn, and especially through the second act, it kind of like, well, actually say through the first act is pretty slow. It's a pretty slow burn as we're establishing the characters, and there's not a lot. The energy is very subdued, and it's not until about midway through the second act where it really starts picking up, when we get in the middle of the mission and things start to go awry. So it may put some people off in that, but if you can get through that and you really dig Brandon Cronenberg's art style, you could definitely, I would say this definitely should go on the list. But my question for the audience is, given that Brandon is a relatively new director, he's only had 3 films, but each one I think has conveyed his particular art style as he's gotten better. Very similar to when we talked last week about Joe Begos and the movie Bliss that he put out. How his particular style has developed and evolved over, like, movies like with Joe Begos, it was like Bliss and then VFW and then Christmas Bloody Christmas. With this one, we've got Antisocial, Possessor, and then Infinity Pool. So my question is, of the movies that Brandon has made so far, what do you think has been his best effort? Antisocial, Possessor, or Infinity Pool? Definitely let us know down in the comments below, or weekinhorror@gmail.com. Of course, here in the live chat. What do you think has been Brandon Cronenberg's best effort so far? Because I'm definitely looking forward to his next one. Definitely let us know. All right. So what do we have up next, good sir? We have a big, these are some big shifts. We're kind of all over the place genre-wise this week.
All right.
Oh, come on. It's not that bad.
The fact you have to say not that bad.
Because it's not that
bad. Next up, we have Cult of Chucky, which was released October 3rd, 2017. Roll it.
I was 6. My babysitter was murdered.
And they never caught him?
Justice was done.
Wanna play?
Nika, the murders were real.
Chucky never was.
That's right. He was a fantasy, a delusion.
Are you feeling better now?
I don't blame you for being afraid. I was very
crush
ill.
on Fiona. I really do.
Chucky told me. He's coming for you.
It's important that we all explore it together as a group. I think I have something that will help.
Whoa.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
First, he'll kill each and every one of you in the most horrible ways you can imagine. And then he'll kill me too.
Come to mommy. Oh, come.
Are you afraid of the truth?
Terrified. You should be too.
Night night. And they call me sick?
Wait a minute, there's 2 of them?
He'll kill us all!
A true classic never goes out of style.
All right, that was Chucky, directed by Don Mancini, starring Fiona Dourif, Michael Tarenholt, Adam Herding, Alex Vincent, Jennifer Tilly, and of course, Brad Dourif. And basically, the plot is that you have Fiona Dourif, who is now in a insane asylum. And basically, Chucky comes back to settle the score with a little bit of help from his wife. And then also, we get Andy, who also comes and plays a part in it, too. And I'll say shit gets real in this one. I'll say it, because we do have some gnarly kills. And definitely gnarly kills. So, aside from the kills, I honestly, a lot of it was like I like the fact that it went back more into the horror route, because we moved away from, like, say, Bride of Chucky, or I think Seed of Chucky is probably still the worst one out of. I'll never get the CGI title sequence out of my head for that one. But I don't know. This one, it's okay. I'll say it's okay I'll say it's okay at best. And kind of, it felt a little bit lower budget then I would have liked to see the twist of there's multiple Chuckies. Spoiler alert: there's multiple Chuckies. I was kind of like, it felt like they just needed to add some more, so they're kind of like, here's more and more there. But overall, it was okay.
So here was the big issue. I do agree. So some of the kills were extremely gnarly in this one, and it was interesting. It was nice to see the shift that was made from Seed of Chucky to Curse of Chucky, which is the film that precedes this one, because this one starts off Fiona Dourif's character, her Nika, is currently in an insane asylum after the events of Curse of Chucky. When Chucky winds up in the hands of this girl who's in a wheelchair, and essentially, shit goes wild. But that's all centered in her home, like in the home that she lives in. And so this one is continued on after those murders. She's now in an insane asylum, and then Chucky shows up. I liked that it maintained the shift, because there was a big tonal shift in between Seed of Chucky and, of course, Curse of Chucky and then Cult of Chucky. And that was a return to the hard R style, the hard violence that, this kicked off the genre. In the original Child's Play 2. Child's Play 2 being the best, in my personal opinion. The one thing I dug, I dig that, and I dug that the practical effects of all the kills were really, really fantastic, and the interesting twist that Chucky has been able to figure out how to basically partition out his soul, like to put fragments of himself into other good guy dolls. So kind of like this, like a fucking lich or a lick. He's able to like phylactery himself out. So if you like kill the original, the other ones are still alive. So it's like, it makes him even harder to kill. I dug where they were going with it, what they were setting up. The problem overall that I see is you have fantastic acting. Fiona Dourif's on point. Jennifer Tilly's fantastic. Brad Dourif always delivers 100% with Chucky. I see all the Chucky emojis that are coming up in the live chat as well. Everybody's fantastic in this, and the story makes sense and it follows along. My issue with this one is what's been plaguing the Child's Play franchise since the very beginning. Despite this one being a good kind of like romp, a good popcorn flick, a good popcorn slasher with a lot of gore and a lot of nastiness, my question was, how often can we do this? That was the big takeaway I had in this one. Brad Dourif makes the character indelible. That's what makes him a horror icon, is Brad Dourif's voice acting as the character itself. The problem is that Child's Play started off 1988. That was the first Child's Play, came out 1988 or 89. It's one of the two. I think it was 88. Same year that Friday the 13th Part 8 came out. Okay, 88 was a big year for horror films, like a big year for franchise horror films. Child's Play comes out, and then it's followed up by Child's Play 2, which was fucking phenomenal. Child's Play 3, little bit of a dip. Things just started kind of falling, because how far can you go in adding elements to this and maintaining a hard R? It's literally just, Chucky has chased Andy for 3 films straight. We think he dies, and then so 3 was just a rehash. That's why there was so much time in between 3 and Bride of Chucky. So the franchise was reinvented with Bride of Chucky to bring in more camp. Very similar to what happened like with Evil Dead, with any other franchise, especially with Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street, it was about 4, where they started to take a swing into camp, and they went hard camp by 6. By 6, there was a lot of camp. And so then that's when the character became equally as bad, equally as violent and gross as he was campy, with all the one-liners and shit. So Chucky did that as well. Child's Play franchise did that well. Bride of Chucky, not so bad. It was good self-referential humor. It came out, it was like in a post-Scream universe. So everybody was kind of like, meta humor. It's all great. Then they try to double down on that with Seed of Chucky and completely fell flat. Then we see another break. There's another kind of like lull. Then all of a sudden, Cult of Chucky comes back. The franchise is reinvented again to go back to the hard R with a little bit of camp in there just to keep things light. Not to mention bringing in Fiona Dourif, who's Brad Dourif's daughter. And I thought it was really, really good. That was a strong return to form. Really good. Like, let's go back to the classic evil doll in the house. Very Trilogy of Terror shit, it brought back memories like Karen Black, Can't Escape the Apartment, the fucking the Zuni doll that's chasing her around the place. I got that. I enjoyed that. Okay? But then this is another rehash. Now we're at the point where we can't even get 2 films in, and we're already dropping the ball, which is why there wasn't a 3rd film after this. Now we have the series on Sci-Fi. which unfortunately the first season was fantastic, but now the second season kind of dips. We're seeing this repetition that I personally, as a horror fan, as a fan of Brad Dourif's work on this franchise, we're seeing a repetition that I'm not liking. That it's almost like trying to do the same thing over and over again.
Returns.
Right? Oh yeah, agreed. But do you think at this point they'd be aware of it? 88. How many is it, like over 30 years? And
yeah.
And we're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We know the franchise can't go into camp. It can't go into hard camp again because people are burned out after Seed of Chucky. We can't go straight back horror because we already did that with Curse. So my question is, can this what all this movie did when I was watching was make me realize, despite how good the puppetry was, the animatronics were fantastic, how Brad Dourif was always on point, everything works. But the problem is, it's the energy of that franchise. It's almost like the tank is running empty way faster than it should be. Can this thing even last?
And because when Child's Play first came out, it plays on fear, and it was something that we haven't really seen before. The problem with Chucky, and this is the fundamental problem with Chucky, is, and this is why he's never been super scary to me, if I see him coming, I can punt him. I can. And so, which means he has to go and he has to sneak up on people, and he finds other creative ways, and that's how he's able to kill people. But because of that, it's not like Jason that can just overtake you, or Michael Myers that can overtake you, or some kind of supernatural being that can drag you somewhere or control. Yeah, something that's just Jason. You can always put Jason in a house, and then he can just ravage through like college kids. And he can just keep having creative ways of killing people. Whereas with Chucky, you don't have that option. You start getting some creative kills, like the shattering of the glass overhead that it decapitates her and stuff like that. Now it's pretty cool. But the best kill in the movie is a stiletto kill by Fiona Dourif. Not even Chucky. Chucky doesn't even have the best kill in this movie. So that takes away a little bit of it. And because we've already gone hard R, then we've gone camp / parody itself. Then it went back to hard R. There's nowhere else for the genre to go except for in space. That's the last thing we're missing is space. They tried to reboot the one of Aubrey Plaza, which was, we've already talked about on this podcast, was terrible.
Right.
It was just hands down just terrible. And I'm just at a point burned out. Like, I've seen everything that Chucky can do. Like,
it really can't go any further than this. I mean, I agree with that. It's like, I don't know where else it can go. Sarcasm says, write up a treatment. I have seen your work and I know you can make a better reboot. I think I could definitely do a better reboot than the one that we got, despite the efforts of Mark Hamill, who could, the amazing Mark Hamill, who could not save that movie. That fucking reboot was terrible. That was what, Megan is what that film should have been. That Megan works better than trying to do Child's Play with that. I thought, the Child's Play reboot was awful. I honestly agree. I don't think the franchise has anywhere to go. I think we've seen all that can really happen. Once they broke the ground, once Don Mancini broke the ground of the whole partitioning of souls out, I think, in my eyes, I think the franchise kind of jumped the shark on that one. Now it's kind of like, it always seemed like it was on the verge of getting out of control, which is what the problem with what Child's Play 3 was, that it was getting out of control there. And then you have Seed of Chucky was on the verge of getting out of control, which is why there was the kind of lull there. And then, of course, with this one, with Cult of Chucky, it seems the franchise is always on the verge of, like, literally, I would say on the verge of about to go to space. That's when it goes to space, that's when it's over. So that's when ostensibly it's kind of died. And we've always been like, we want to take it to that point where we're like, and then no, we pull back. And then it was like, no, we don't want to go to space just yet. So as enjoyable as the film is, as enjoyable as a popcorn flick, and anybody who's a big fan of Chucky sure, you may have something here, some really solid kills, and bringing Andy back is really energy. It's like they brought the original actor back. He's torturing the original, Chucky head. The fact that sequence where they share a joint, I thought was fucking hilarious. I laughed my ass off. He was like, sure, I'll give you a hit like that. Well, he's fucking like torturing this fucking doll head in his house. The fact that his sister, his adopted sister, shows up at the very end. Kyle from Child's Play 2 shows up. I see what they're doing. They're kind of like bringing the whole thing full circle, but even that I don't feel could really save it.
That's why when you started seeing multiple Chuckies and I can create more, it felt gimmicky.
The worst part was that when the three of them were like doing a Larry or doing like a Three Stooges amongst each other. That is where I was like, this is where we're going. Is like, I'm making fun of your hair, and we're arguing about who to kill and how to kill them, and it's like really like three Chuckies arguing Three Stooges style. That's where we've ended up, and it just was like, that just really took it out of me. I was kind of like, that was a bit cringy in my taste. For my taste, that was a bit cringy.
It was cringy. That's why it just felt cheap at that moment. You're like, because it's like, okay, you're trying to go back into the hard R and the scary realm again to a degree, and then you have that moment where they're arguing. You're like, well, any kind of atmosphere or scare factor that you're trying for is just gone.
Right.
At that point, just straight up, just gone. And they had nowhere else to go. And now Chucky can possess people and ultimately, I feel like the IP has fallen apart.
I would agree. Yeah. Despite the fact that Brad Dourif's incredible work as the character, bringing him to life, and that one thing that's always been important to Mancini, and I think is important to the audience as well, understanding that if the doll doesn't look good, if the doll doesn't function right, then it immediately takes people out of the movie. And so all the careful attention over the past 30 plus years that have been paid to making sure the doll fucking works and looks solid as far as like a horror film goes. That's always been like an amazing mainstay, is that the animatronics, the puppetry of the Child's Play films has always been on point. It always looks good. I've never once watched a Child's Play film and been like, okay, wait, sorry. Aside from Seed of Chucky, because the Tina doll, that looked goofy as shit. But every time I've seen with the Chucky doll, with the Charles Lee Ray doll, with that one, it's always looked fantastic. Even when he was all beat up and was like all sewn together and shit and all goofy, that was always good. And even in these films, it looks fantastic. But you can only rest your laurels on Brad Dourif's performance and really solid puppetry for so long. And I think a lot of people are pointing out in the live chat, a number of people pointed out that it was solid acting with really poor writing. I don't know if Mancini knows really where to go, especially after season 2 of especially after the second season on Sci-Fi. I have no idea where he's going to go with this, or even if there is a place to go with this. So I think you're right with the diminishing returns. As much as I'd love it to continue on, I don't think the franchise has anywhere else to go.
I can't picture like what a next step would be, because like I was talking about earlier, if you take somebody like Pinhead, you can always do something with Pinhead.
Right.
You can always have some kind of new power. You can always have some kind of supernatural force, or people use the cube for so many different reasons. You can go so many places, and they have, and some of those are places we didn't want to go, but you can go there. You have the killer doll. And the killer doll can only do so much. You can only add so much twists, and we're bringing Andy back, and it's just, you can only do so much before it's like, I don't know where to go. I don't know how you make that series better again.
Right. Hey, Paracord Princess is here. Good to see you. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Paracord Princess asks, Eugene JL just got here. Is a pentagram your new logo? Yes.
Yes.
A pentagram with the big V in there for season 5. So this is the 5th season. So we can thank Josh Olsen for that amazing artwork that he punched out. But yes, that is the logo for season 5. And I see here Jay versus brought up. Oh, there's been a bunch of Chucky verses in this. Jay versus Chucky versus Eugene storyboards, and I have to agree with Casey Cooper. The horror. Yes, absolutely. But Jeremy Duncan said Chucky versus Jail in Eugene. No horror icon would survive against us. As a matter of fact, any member of the Week in Horror crew, no horror icon would survive. We know we have simply seen and know too much. We can turn the tables on any horror icon that tried to come after us. I don't care who it is. We know all the tricks. We do. We would beat them all. You can't go up against the Encyclopedia Britannica of horror and think you're going to get one over on us. It's just not going to happen.
If a horror icon is going to take us down, it's sure as hell not going to be Chucky.
Yeah, sure as shit is not going to be Chucky. Yeah, I mean, come on. It's like, Eugene just pointed out physics. That's what beats Chucky. Fucking, it's not even, I don't even have to do anything supernatural. It's just fucking physics. Like, reality, like, okay, doll, punt him off a balcony. Problem solved. Take 30 flights straight to the concrete.
Done. That's it.
Done.
Lock him up, drop him in the bottom of the ocean. So, yeah. It's anyway. So, I want to actually ask the audience, where should the franchise go next? Like, we talked about where could it go, and there's really hard to tell, but I want to know if you have any ideas where the franchise should go. Honestly, put a bow on it, send it to space, Chucky and Zero G, and just admit it. Just embrace it, and just, this is where you knew this was going to happen, and here we are.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if it can go. We got Chucky in space. Oh, Robert Biter says Middle Earth. Okay, see, Angel Rivera brings up something good. Angel Rivera says, leave it alone and let it rest in peace. And I have to agree with Angel. I don't think the franchise can go anywhere. That at this point, it's just beating fan service into the ground, because that's all it has to hang on is fan service. And if a franchise can only hang on fan service, then I don't think there's anywhere to go. So Jeremy Duncan says they won't let it rip. You got the damn TV series. Agreed. True. Extra J says the moon. Wait, space. No, wait, the moon. So, and of course, Annie says it should die. Like, it should die. And Travis Brown says nowhere. But yeah, I just, I don't think, give Chucky, yes, Tony Regime. Good to see you, Tony Regime says, give Chucky some water skis and jump the fucking shark. It kind of did, especially with like the whole, like, it's gotten out of control. Especially, I don't want to spoil the second season of Child's Play for anybody, but if you've watched it, you know that they pulled the full fucking Fonzie and they literally jumped the shark. So it's just not necessary at this point. I don't know if it has anywhere to go, but the question is for you. If you think it can, definitely let us know down in the comments below or weekinhorror@gmail.com. Tell us, if you think this franchise still has legs. Very little Chucky legs as he runs. So let us know if you still think it actually has some legs, or if these things have been worn down to nubs and it just needs to go back in the toy box, to collect dust. I'm very, very curious what people think. Oh, and Jerry in season 3 this October, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you know what? We have fond memories of watching Child Play and Child Play 2, and just leave it as is. Or you can always do Chucky versus like Annabelle type of movie and just completely just whatever. I don't know. Annabelle doesn't do anything anyway. So, but
yeah, she just lays there. She's just a cold fish. Because she's just lazy. She's just doing it.
My visual imagination.
Oh, come on!
Completely different.
I went a whole different area for that one. She came on to me. Huge thank you to NANA. Thank you so much for the gifted membership to the Army of the Dead. Welcome, Glober Mom, to the Army of the Dead. I hope you enjoy those emojis. But thank you very much, NANA. We appreciate that support.
Thank you, NANA. Thank you so much.
Right. All right. Let's move on to our last film of the night. We've got one more up. And this one released October 5th, 2001. So we're going to go back in time to the early 2000s. We have the film, we have the psychological road trip horror film, Joyride. Let's check out this trailer. Cue up the terror tube of the fucking chuckening. What the shit? No, it's as good as anything else that's been posited. It really is. You know? Let's check out this trailer.
If you had a car, you could pick me up in Colorado. We could have an adventure. You know, the two of us.
You'd want that? How far would you go for the girl you've always wanted?
Lily Sobieski, I'll go really far.
Is 1971. How much would you do for a brother in need?
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'll drop him off in Denver. I'll see you tomorrow.
Breaker one, man. This is like a prehistoric internet or something. Can you do a woman's voice?
How much fun could you have?
Hey there, this is Candy Cane. Who's this?
Rusty Nail.
If I were there, Rusty Nail, I'd make you feel good. This is turning me on.
When the joke
I'll be at the Lone Star Motel.
What room?
Room 17. I can't wait. This is awesome!
is now on you.
Who the hell is it?
We had a little incident here last night. The victim was staying in room 17.
What happened to him?
Ripped his jaw clean off.
This fall,
So you guys ready for an adventure or what?
everything you say
Candy cane.
We saw what you did to that guy. You pathetic, lonely freak show.
will come back to haunt you.
You really should get that fixed.
Get what fixed?
That tail light.
Everything you see is going to terrify you. And everything you hear
Who's the pretty girl?
He's watching us!
is going to drive you
Go, go!
over the edge.
Now leave it alone, please! We'll do whatever you want!
I want you two to head inside naked. So how does it feel to be the freak in the room?
Hey, we're sorry!
Why'd you do it?
It was just for fun, just for a laugh.
You don't feel like getting together in a motel later. Room 17. Do not be 1 minute late.
Don't open the door! Don't open the door!
So you still good, or need me to drive?
All right, that was the trailer for Joyride. And real quick, good to see you, Elizabeth S. Thanks so much for popping in tonight. Do appreciate it. Chucky of the Corn. Now it's getting out of hand. But yeah, that was the trailer for Joyride. And psychological, I would say a psychological road trip horror film that released back in 2001, directed by John Dahl and written by Clay Tarver and J.J. Abrams. Way back in the day. And starring Steve Zahn, Paul Walker, and Lily Sobieski. The film follows a group of teens who are basically driving across country and run afoul of an evil truck driver who apparently has like omniscient knowledge of everything that's going on in a very Hitchcock meets the Hitcher style film. But yeah, definitely I would say an enjoyable little film that is definitely a popcorn film that I would say takes elements from the Hitcher, Duel. Yeah, that Road No Same brings up Duel. And I would say in a very kind of established in a very kind of Hitchcockian way. So, but a good little cautionary film. I dig cautionary films. There's an enduring appeal to cautionary style films, whereas this one's a little bit different. The ones we'd have today would be like you never know who you're talking to online because you can't see them. So you never knew, like this one, you never know who's on the other end of the phone. You never know who's on the other end of the CB, like who you're fucking with, and how pranks can come back and get you because you don't know who the other person is. So, like an early version of the internet, yes, Robert Biter, J.J. Abrams, yep. So Hitcher did it better. Agreed. Like Hitcher, never pick up hitchhikers. That was the whole point. You don't pick up hitchhikers, the movie never fucking happens. Don't fuck with people over the radio, the movie never happens. So I like cautionary tales because cautionary tales are almost the centerpiece of horror since way back in the day, since we started telling scary stories to each other. And, in our most primitive times, we were sharing scary stories to warn people about about things not to do. Because we, this is where our urban legends come from, which is why I kind of dig this one because it's both a kind of like a nostalgia plus kind of like touching on Hitchcock and the Hitcher, which I thought was neat. It's a good little popcorn film and good acting. Lily Sobieski's fantastic. And of course, Paul Walker, rest in peace, Paul Walker, and Steve Zahn, who is always amazing, whatever he does. Otherwise, just a decent picture. Good popcorn film.
Yeah, the thing is, it's a fun movie. I will give it that. There are obviously movies that have done it much better. I will go to Duel any day. I like Duel because it's just a guy by himself in a car. It felt like they had to taunt him on the CB radio to justify all this other kind of stuff. Where, you know what, I like Duel because the only thing you ever see or hear of him is his arm sticking out the window when he waves by. When he
and
waves
his boots, and his boots.
Oh yeah, and his boots.
The boots, yeah.
So that's really all you see, and I love that movie. I mean, it's just, you can see the brilliance of Steven Spielberg right off the bat from that. So this one, it's kind of fun. It's one of those movies that when you look at Paul Walker's life, you don't really bring up. I'll bring up Tammy and T-Rex more than I'll bring up Joyride.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How do you even articulate that? I mean, it's just like, art imitates life, imitating like art imitating life, imitating art, or life imitating art, imitating life. It's just, it's kind of sad. Very, very an unfortunate coincidence in that respect. I don't even know where I don't even know where to go with that one. It's kind of like, it's like, yeah, it's kind of one of those sad facts of reality.
It's one of those kind of things. It kind of is, and it's one of those. It falls into the middle ground, and it's the mediocrity of movies where it's too good to be considered a bad movie, but it's not good enough to be considered like a really great film. So he just lives in this limbo that's just kind of just there. And I'm pretty sure you can have a couple hardcore fans of that. I'm pretty sure there's a couple people who hate the movie. But overall, when you're looking at the list of movies, or even the list of movies that came out in 2001, no one's going to bring up Joyride.
Right. Yeah. I think, unfortunately, it was one of those ones that came along that kind of got lost in the post Scream, because Scream came out in 1996 and Scream 2 came out shortly before this one. And, with the Scream franchise going on and the whole concept of meta horror coming out, classic psychological horror films, or psychological those in this respect, that rely on the tried and true tropes of like this one, cautionary tales, kind of fall under the radar. And they're just kind of movies that come along that pay well, and they're pretty easy to do. They don't require a whole ton of deep, character exploration. Just to give it, it's very similar to like the movie The Hitcher, or like the remake of The Hitcher, when the one with Scene Bean. When that one came out, it was very, very along the same lines. They're not a hard stretch as far as acting goes or directing goes. They're pretty by the numbers, and unfortunately, that one kind of hindered but ultimately, I think what really hindered this film was one of the big things about it is that there were a ridiculous amount of deleted scenes in this one. The theatrical cut that we get, and even the cut that you see if you go and watch the movie itself, the theatrical cut was had some very, very disjointed moments in it. And I think that ultimately worked against the film, despite the fact that he had some really real talent in this one. The problem was that it was almost like there was a lot of, I would say, a lot of disagreement on what kind of film they were trying to convey. Like, for example, one thing that was always stood out really odd to me was the character of Lily Sobieski's character, Venna. Venna appears to have a burgeoning, like, romantic relationship going on with both Fuller and his brother, which is kind of odd because, it's conveyed that Fuller and it's conveyed that Lewis and Venna are the ones that are supposed to be together, but there is this kind of like burgeoning, like romantic kind of like energy going between her and Steve Zahn's Fuller. Well, that was because originally, in the original, like in one version of the film, she actually has romantic interludes with both characters. So, but they decided to cut that out so they could kind of streamline it. But that means that you've thrown off some of the other scenes, so that gives a weird energy there, which kind of throws the characterizations up in the air, because you gotta like, okay, so like, how am I identifying with this person and their relationship and their interpersonal relationships? That throws it off. Not to mention, there was like literally from what I read on this, there is a how long was that fucking thing? There was a 29-minute long alternate ending for the film, and four more shorter alternate endings. And the one that we got, the theatrical one, was the only one where the character of Rusty Nail survives. All the other ones, he dies in some sort of amazing fashion. And what's wild is that I don't know if you knew this, but one of the deleted scenes involved the truck exploding and then crashing into a water tower. And the water tower spills its water all over the truck and puts the fire out, which gives the ambiguous ending of he could have survived. Maybe he got away because the fire was put out if the fire was put out fast enough. And they shot it. They actually shot the sequence. The whole sequence cost $100,000 to shoot that one sequence with the water tower. Totally cut, didn't use any of it. So
see the fact that you told me, because I didn't know, I knew it had a alternate ending. I didn't know they had that many alternate endings, which makes me think they didn't know what they wanted.
Right.
I understand one thing where you're like, hey, the ending could be here or there, or sometimes you'll shoot an extra scene, or sometimes you'll shoot one scene two different ways because you're kind of you're on the fence and you want to see which one tests better the audience. Movies do that all the time. But when you're getting into a 29-minute alternate ending, you have all three other different renditions of all these endings. What that tells me is that the director didn't know what he wanted.
I would agree.
And that's where it kind of falls apart, is that what you're happening is the movie has no identity.
Typically you see that if you're going into production and you don't have a fully completed script when you start.
Yeah. So you don't know what it is. And probably it was like, well, we could have just a one relationship, or we can have, she can kind of go between back and forth between. We don't know. Should Rusty Nail die? Should he not die? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Let's just shoot everything and hope that we can put some movie together in editing. That's the feel. And what ends up happening is you get this where the movie has no identity, therefore it doesn't stand out.
Right. So yeah, of the different ones, I mean, there was a bunch of different alternate endings. I think there was one where like Rusty Nail commits suicide with his shotgun, one where he gets arrested, one where the brothers kill him, and one where he's blown up, and another one where he's run over by his own truck. So there's a number of different ones. The one we got is the one where he actually, where he absolutely is guaranteed, confirmed that he survives. And there's also a whole bunch of deleted scenes. I think that's why the film was kind of like harmed itself. It was that lack of a sense of where it was going to go or what it wanted to be. If it wanted to go hard into Hitcher territory, or if it wanted to stay kind of ambiguous in kind of like a Hitchcockian area. So I always got the feeling that this film went into production without a fully formulated script, and by the time they got to where they were able to shoot some form of an ending, they really weren't sure what they wanted. Initially, I thought, well, maybe they did that because they were trying to. Oh, yeah, Plato's like the ending with Kurt Russell the best. That was Breakdown, and actually a better film than this one was.
Yes.
So, I think I initially thought that they had done that because they wanted to do because in case one ending doesn't test well, they can actually like get those. It was okay. We have different endings that we can apply. So because we shot a bunch, so we don't have to do reshoots. So I thought maybe it might have been a safety thing, but now going back and on the rewatch and watching this, like, so many years later, I'm honestly thinking that it was just kind of like they weren't fully prepped. They needed to get a film out. They had the bare bones of a script, and maybe the producers, there was some disagreement or some like push and pull between the directors and the producer, or between the director and the producer as to what direction this was going to go, what they were going to convey, which is why we got this kind of like chopped up version that made it to theaters. It's kind of like, we got this Paul Walker vehicle. Sorry, that's a bad joke. We got this Paul Walker, Steve Zahn, Lee Sobieski vehicle. Let's go with this one. And it could have been a lot better. Could have been a lot stronger.
Honestly, I would probably go with lack of vision on the director. I'll put some on the producer also, but I'm going to put most of this on the director, because it's one thing if you have multiple endings, and let's say you have one ending where Rusty Nail dies and one ending where he survives. And you're like, okay, we don't know which one will test well. So you have your two endings and you can go either way, right? And completely different endings. I can understand, or maybe another ending of this. But when you have, we have 4 different endings where Rusty Nail dies. like, that means that the director and the studio could not choose not only what happens to Rusty Nail, but how he dies.
Right.
And you're going to spend all this money. It's like, well, does he get run over by the truck? We'll shoot that. Does he get drowned in water? We'll shoot that. We'll shoot that. We'll shoot that. All of those end up with Rusty Nail dying. So you just make it. And then you can test either one on that, or maybe you can have another character dies and then one where she doesn't die.
Right.
So you have a 50-50. They couldn't decide. You're going to burn through the budget on shooting all these different endings. And who else knows all the stuff that they shot that they couldn't decide on?
Right. Yeah, but Jeremy Duggan brings up definitely not his best movie, Paul Walker. I would agree with that. You know, it didn't make use of his talent. I don't think it made use of anybody's talent. Not to mention the stakes were never super high because you never get the sense as the audience, you never get the sense that any one of these characters are in like extraordinary danger, unlike The Hitcher, whereas, you know, it was established, you know, that one of these characters, both these characters are in extreme danger, and it's likely one of them will not make it out of this alive. Especially the remake. I thought the remake, but not to mention the first Hitcher as well, because Rutger Hauer, I mean, no one's ever going to match that performance. Love to Sean Bean, who was fantastic in the Hitcher remake. Rutger Hauer, you're not going to stop that. Yeah, Rutger Hauer, C. Thomas Howell, they established the fucking road trip horror, which is fantastic. But yeah, unfortunately, I think, you know, this is where the production kind of gets in its way. Kind of, you know, when the production can't get out of its own way, the movie can't really be told, which is such a damn shame, because I think it could have been a lot stronger. Definitely, it did not deserve 2 more fucking movies after this. I don't think Rusty Nail as a character was that compelling, but is the voice over the CB, the whatever, I just unnecessary. But hey, you got a franchise, you may as well milk it.
You know, and looking back at it, first of all, when you have the driver that you can't see, so they have to be stuck in an 18-wheeler, that really limits what you can do with the character. Right. And second of all, this has to be a pure cash grab, because I just wanted to check. And the first Fast and Furious movie came out about 3 months before this movie came out. So you know that this was probably something that was considered being shelved. And then all of a sudden Paul Walker blows up, and man, bad use of analogies here. Really, really bad. Paul Walker does
man,
well.
I can't. Wow. Wow, dude.
Paul Walker does very well in Fast and Furious.
We're going to fucking hell for this one.
Yeah, I can't talk about him. So clearly they're piggybacking off of Fast and Furious. Clearly.
I think possibly, yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely like capitalizing on Paul Walker's sudden rise to fame, and then we can put this one out. Ooh, that was a bad one. That was so bad.
I thought you had the worst one, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to beat that." Oh man, yep, I did.
Oh, Paul Walker in car movies. It's just right there. It's just right there. But anyway, a huge giant thank you to NANA for the gifted membership. I do appreciate that. Welcome, Mr. B, to the Army of the Dead, and a huge thank you to Dr. Nimrod, who gifted 5 Army of the Dead memberships. Thank you very, very much. We do appreciate that support. And of course, NANA, who dropped a super chat for $6.66, our favorite super chat number, said, I loved Breakdown. A lot of that movie was done right in my backyard. I did watch it in theaters when it was out. I also watched it as well. Kathleen Quinlan, Kurt Russell, JT Walsh, fuck yes. How could you deny that one? It was fucking amazing. That movie was awesome. Not to mention a fantastic ending. Gotta love that one. That was just, and the writing on it was just sublime.
Yeah. See what happens when you have good writing?
Yes. And Travis Brown likes to know that Paul Walker was in an episode of Highway to Heaven.
I think it's time for the CTA.
Tesla Radio, good to see you. He says too soon. Too soon. Maybe too soon. But thank you, Travis Brown. I appreciate that. That was I hope somebody will find that funny. Someone's in their car going to listen to this. Hopefully, if you're in your car like listening to this, or in your like office listening to the show, and you got a laugh out of that, let us know down in the comments. I'm really curious. But yes, I want to ask the audience. And no, I'm not asking the audience like which of the Joyrides was the best, because no. What I do want to ask though is, given what Joyride ostensibly was, is a cautionary movie. It's basically a cautionary tale, is ostensibly what that was. So my curiosity is, what is your favorite cautionary tale horror film? Where those old kind of like tales we used to tell ourselves to warn children or to warn the teenagers from going off and doing things. What is your favorite cautionary tale horror? Let us know down in the comments below at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Love to hear what you guys think. Absolutely let us know.
I have to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of cautionary tale horror films. I'm not saying there are plenty of good ones out there, but I'm not a fan of the genre as a whole, because to me, it's always scarier being more like at the wrong place at the wrong time. Where you have something like The Strangers. That's always more terrifying because it's just a couple that's just going out to a house. That's it. That's why are you doing this? Because you were home.
Because you were home.
Because you're home. And so when you have the people who are more at the wrong place at the wrong time, that can literally happen to anybody. And that's what's terrifying about it.
Definitely. Jeremy Duncan says Alice in Wonderland, best cautionary tale.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. Plottle says, guess he wasn't in an episode of Touched by an Angel. Ouch.
Wow. Oh man.
It just hurts. People are going to get so mad at us for this episode. All right. Well, you know what time it is. That's the last of our movie, so it means it's that time. What time is it, Eugene?
You can't see my hands. Trivia time!
It is trivia time.
All right. It's trivia time. So get those Google fingers ready. And the first person to answer in the comments below with the correct answer will win a mystery prize from the Weekend Horror Store. So, the question for tonight is this. What was the villain, Rusty Nail, who was physically portrayed by an uncredited Matthew Kimbrough, actually credited as? What was the villain, Rusty Nail, who was physically portrayed by an uncredited Matthew Kimbrough, actually credited as? The first person with the correct answer in the chat below will win.
All right. I see Andrew Rivera's got the first one in there, and it says while Ted Levine did portray the voice of Rusty Nail over the CB, that is not what Rusty Nail was credited as in the credits of the film. And Robert Biter also said Ted Levine. Tony Regime said Pee Wee Herman. That's friggin' hilarious. Travis Brown also said Clancy Brown. No, not Clancy Brown. Jeremy Duncan. Why, oh, why did we have to pick Joyride as the trivia question? But yeah. So, Ted Levine did portray the voice, and Matthew Kimbrough portrayed the physical, the body. But both of them were actually uncredited in the film. So Rusty Nail was credited as something else. What was Rusty Nail credited as in the film? I know someone out there's going to find it. Ooh, this one's coming. This was a tough one.
Oh, we got a couple others. See, we got Ken Krenzinger.
Ken Krenzinger, yep.
Which is incorrect. Yep. We also have Matthew Kimbrough, which was also incorrect.
Because that was in the question itself. And Travis got it.
Travis
got it. The first one, it was Clavo. Rusty Nail was credited as Clavo in the credits of the film. He was credited at the very bottom after everybody else. It was Rusty Nail Rusty Nail was portrayed as Clavo because Clavo is Spanish for nail. I guess they were being cute. I have no idea. But that's what he was credited as in the credits. And I see that Andrew Rivera also got it, Clavo. But yeah, wrote it in the same Peter Dinklage. That's hilarious. That's awesome. So
I would watch that.
I would watch it. Yeah, definitely. The Shania Twain Massacre. Fuck yeah. What is it? The Shania Twain Saw Massacre?
Yeah.
So congratulations, Travis Brown. Let me get your name down. You got that correct. It was Clavo. And we are going to shoot you something from the Season 5 line. We're giving away items from the Season 5 line. So look forward to something coming your way very, very soon. All right. That is going to, so that Horror Fiend is going to close out an episode of the Weekend Horror Podcast. But before we go, we have something special that we want to that I want to add, and I want to ask you. Oh, Raven Dark says ticks and air horns. I hate you, JL, but I love you, Raven, and I always will. We all will. We all here at Week in Horror. We love you. So, oh yeah, Travis says, give me one of those season 5 items. It's on its way, my friend. But wait, there's more. So Eugene, you there?
Oh yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, because I can't see you. All I see is the virtual nipple. So, you recently directed a short film, did you not?
Oh, I did.
You did?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did. Something that we completed and that was screened at a movie theater this past Sunday.
It was. And if I remember correctly, that film actually starred our very own Johnny O, did it not?
Yes.
It did.
And
yes, it did.
Not only did it star our very, very talented Johnny O, but Johnny O actually got an award for outstanding performance.
I know, live chat. I'm as fucking shocked as you are. I play. But if last I checked,
he was inches away from being recast. But
last I checked, we actually have this, right? We have this to show all of the amazing people in the audience, right?
Oh, yes, we do.
What would the live chat think about popping over to the Discord after the show's over and checking out the premiere of the zombie film Dead End, starring our very own Johnny O, along with Precious Peck from 11 to 6, and directed by our very own Eugene Hawkins? Would y'all like to see that? Because that's where we're going to go after the show is over. We're going to debut Dead End over in the Discord. So be sure to get over there. The link, if you're not in there, if you're not in our Discord, the link is down in the description. But we're going to debut Dead End, the zombie film that was directed by Eugene Hawkins and starring our very own Johnny O and the lovable and amazingly talented Precious Peck. So be sure you get over there to watch that. So that right there, my horror fans, is going to close out this week's episode of the Week in Horror podcast. So I want to thank you all so much for joining us. We really hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, smash those like and subscribe buttons. Be sure to hit that bell so you never miss a future episode. Join us next week when we look back at the Tobe Hooper cult classic Toolbox Murders, the compelling and violent I Am Lisa, an inevitable journey to space in Critters 4. Yes, we're going there. And the 2011 The Thing prequel. Should be interesting. Be sure to check out Josh Olsen's store at badsamurai.store. He does all the amazing artwork you see splattered all over our merch, which you can find over at Teespring. For more from Week in Horror, check out all the bloody links down in the description. Follow us on the socials, and X as long as it's there, for the Daily Splatter, your daily horror recommendation. Join our Discord, like we said before, for watch parties, big announcements like fucking premieres, and all kinds of horror shenanigans. And support the show through channel memberships, super chats, PayPal, or even through our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. What are you waiting for? Join us. As always, thank you all for being the greatest audience a horror film podcast could possibly have. I am JL.
And I'm a nipple.
We will see you all next week. And as always, stay scared.